Does the system work if your team doesn't like it, or do you as the owner have to tweak it a little bit and
get rid of that person who's not bought into the system?
Well, I think it's a little, I'm going to come in here and play mediator between you two.
So, Alex, we get to talk today about probably your favorite thing and maybe my least favorite thing.
Yeah.
Who wants to guess what that is?
Shopping.
Yeah.
Sorry.
That and something. Yeah.
Spending money.
Okay.
Okay. No, systems.
Yeah. You always loved them. And
Love systems.
And I figured we should bring on one of our good friends who actually, he's in Colorado. He's pretty close to where we are. Mm-hmm. And he crushed it. He went from startup to... It was 4.6 million in 4 years.
Yeah.
In a good growing spot, just absolutely killed it. And he's been really helpful in just sharing everything with us too. So he's been awesome to have. So Chris, thanks for coming on.
Hey guys, thanks for having me.
Yeah, nice.
We're usually wrangling kids, but it's fun. We get a little time to talk about business.
From children. I know.
Yeah.
I'm sure at some point I'm either going to see one of your kids running up or we're going to have the door open and some kid's going to be screaming. I'm sure
Perfect.
No, but I figured so basically the reason for this episode was I got some feedback from someone on Facebook. He slid into my DMs and he was like, "Hey, love the podcast." And I was like, "Oh yeah, cool, thanks. Anything you want us to talk about?" And he was like, "Yeah, I'd like to know what systems actually work versus don't work. What did you guys think, or anyone else what have they done and what actually moved the needle and what was kind of just it didn't really do anything." Mm-hmm. So that's why I was I immediately reached out to Chris after, and I was like, well, for how well he's done, and he's always huge on systems too. Yeah. You love systems too. I was like, that would just be a good episode for us to talk about it. And we're coming at it from the startup, right? Piece of it, right, versus acquisition, which is cool. So
I've done both, right?
Yeah, you've done both. I know. Actually, she has. Sorry. Hey, this time though, I said you did it both. It wasn't just I didn't include myself in that one.
Thanks for including me.
But no, yeah, Chris, can we I just want to dive into it and kind of go with what you think on what systems, when you look back on your journey since doing your startup, probably 7 years or so now, 6-7 years, what actually worked really well, and if you could give advice to anyone listening, what are the things you would be you have to do this?
Yeah, well, I think Alex brings up a good point. First, you have to consider, is it a startup or acquisition? Because buy-in from the team is key, right? So before anything else, with a startup, it's hey, this is how we're going to operate. People are excited, hey, we're going to have an end of day or start of day checklist, things like that. But with an acquisition, they're stuck in their ways, and it depends kind of the type of practice you bought. Did they have any systems? Were they any good? Was it a social doc and they just went off what the last person did, or what somebody brought from another office? And so buy-in would be the first thing. And we could of course get tactical, I know you want to, with specific systems, but I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as well on the buy-in piece.
Oh yeah, I mean, I think that's why. So Alex did an acquisition when I was in the military, right? But on that one, that was kind of what you said. This was older office, right? Old systems or no systems, doctor who didn't really have any, and then getting buy-in. I mean, Alex,
that was rough.
It didn't work.
No.
And so then we kind of flipped 180, and maybe because it was your experience there, you're I want to start everything from scratch and put my systems in because I like them, and the people that come in don't know anything different, right? And I can just train them. So
it's just tough because even if you get rid of people, the older staff that's worked there forever, you never do it as a clean slate. You're everyone's fired and here's new people in, and then you're good to go. It's okay, I'm going to fire the front desk, but you still have the hygienist and the assistant. And then you bring someone on, and then they're tainted by the other people that are still there. So it's always a mess.
But you're also buying the patient base, right? So now you have patients who are used to a certain way, right? They're used to I think you might be able to stereotype a little bit that a doctor with no systems, not really doing anything, maybe also maybe isn't like the strongest diagnoser and stuff, or the best on follow-up treatment, or the best on sending a reminder. So now you've got a patient base who maybe isn't used to like getting text reminders all the time, right? And so that's a challenge too, is you're buying a group of patients that has already an expectation. And if there's a lot of change that you want to do it, I mean, you might have more attrition, right?
Yeah. And then the other thing is like, why systems? Like systems help like eliminate more. There's always gonna be a little bit of chaos, but it helps bring like normalcy to the day to day. Like at least when I go in, I know these things are going to get done, right? And I know that so and so is going to take care of these things. So that's a reason for systems. There's scaling. Like you can't scale, you can't onboard new people or onboard associates and hygienists easily if you don't have a nice process for it. So the team, you come to an acquisition. I think we should focus on maybe startups today, just because
let's do that.
It's easier. It's a cleaner conversation. Yeah. But if you come to this and you're like, okay, we're going to implement systems, it's like, well, what's the why behind it? And so I'll tell you what not to do. So before my startup, I was an associate, and I had like a really long runway before we opened because it was a ground up situation. I was going to lease from a pediatric dentist, but it was just such a sweet location. My associateship was going okay. And I was like, I can wait because this location's like totally worth it. And it worked out. But me being kind of the type A that I am, I was like listening to podcasts and everybody's like, you need systems. And I'm trying to like build the systems before the office is open. Yeah. And it was this like, I don't know if it was a waste of time. There were probably some of those reps that made it worth it. But did we actually use any of those things that I was trying to create by myself? No. Because you got to create it, kind of co-create it with the team to have the buy-in. Now, I like to give them a head start because they're not going to be able to start with just a blank canvas. They don't. Yeah. The team typically, unless they came from a systems-oriented office, doesn't know what exactly you're asking them. But then from there, it's kind of co-created, right?
Yeah. No, but I mean, that probably is good what you did, because you kind of came up with like kind of like your shitty first draft of it, right? And so like you were saying, you at least got reps in. So it probably made, even if you didn't use a lot of those systems, you just spending months or whatever it was, like trying to think about it, probably made it better. So when you actually had like your second version of it, you got through that first version already. So I mean, I bet that probably benefited more than you realize. Yeah.
I think the other component is when doctors start saying, well, I want to get more systematized, they overcomplicate it. So it's like, oh, I'm going to do it on Trainual, or I'm going to buy, I think it's called Thinkific, or one of these platforms. And one thing that it took me a year or two to figure out was how to organize it. And I love Google Docs. I love Google Drive. Like, it's just simple. Like, everybody has a Gmail account. I could share a system with Eric or any friends if they're like, hey, what's your new patient check-in process or whatever. And so it's like the dumbest but simplest thing that I don't think I came up with, but nobody else told me this. I just said, okay, so how am I going to organize it? All right, we have the dental assisting department. Let's start there. We're going to create a Google Doc, and it's going to be like the table of contents. So you start with like job description, mission, vision, core values, accountability agreement. A lot of those, some of those are specific to the position. Some are specific to everyone, not specific, they're for global for the whole office. And so you list out the table of contents, and then you hyperlink the job description to it. So it's its own document, but you just click on it and it pops that up.
Yep.
So you can even have then like a video next to it that goes to your private, you can have the private end where it's not public on your YouTube Gmail for the practice. Okay.
Yep.
And then you build out kind of the foundational elements. And then from there, as we go, if we're an office that's built on, hey, we're always going to be adding systems and refining, I call it the how-tos. So it's like, okay, what's the sterilization process? You click on it. Oh, hey, we made this tweak to sterilization because there was an update in, I don't know, OSHA training. Great. We update it and it's there. So it's easily editable and it's right there and it's free. So that was kind of a breakthrough for me on how to organize it. And it sounds simple. Maybe there's a lot smarter people that probably have better ways, but that's working for us.
No, that's super organized. Yeah, I love that.
Well, I think it's always cool. Like people, and especially if you're a startup doc, right? You're like, I don't want to have to spend a ton of money on stuff. And I do think that works well. I mean, we use Google Docs a lot too.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to have to create a Gmail account or a G Suite account anyways if you're
Yeah.
going to have like a branded, email, right? So you pay a couple bucks a month for it, and it's like
You
now
don't
you
even know.
have storage, you can do all that kind of stuff.
It's like
Alex knows how
15
much it
bucks
is.
a month.
15
Yeah,
bucks a
or
month,
something
sorry.
like that. No, but you're right. People do overcomplicate it from the get-go, and they're like, I want this to be perfect, right? And they're like, I don't know how to do a perfect system, how to organize the perfect system, let alone think of the system itself. And yeah, just write it down on a piece of paper. Like, who cares about what it is, how organized it is in the beginning? Just get it down, and then like it'll flow into what it needs to be later.
Well, I think like you
Yep.
were saying, you just have to start, right? Like
Yeah.
my challenge is I'll always try to be like, I don't want to do this till it's perfect. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. I don't want to make a mistake. And it's like, well, you're still going to make a mistake regardless, right? And if you try to live your life without ever making a mistake, then you get stuck where I get, where it's just like paralysis by analysis, right? And you're just constantly reiterating, but you're never actually doing anything.
Yeah, yeah.
And so I think like what you did, Chris, right? Like you were just like, okay, I'm going to do Google Docs and I'll figure it out. I'm sure you had to switch things throughout it, but at least like you started. And I think that's a big thing doctors need to do is like, just start doing
Yeah,
it.
your
Even if it's not good.
indecision just really
Yeah.
stalls everything, because nothing can happen unless you have that actual system. Like, you're just running around going, I don't know who's doing what or what's
Yep.
happening. And it's just do it. Just literally
Just
just write
start.
it down somewhere and start.
So I mean,
Yeah.
that's what you guys did for like keeping like trainings and like all that stuff if it was onboarding. So what are some other like, I guess, systems within the office that are a little bit more, things like verifying insurance or doing a new patient experience? So like what
Yeah.
systems did you guys do too early on? And you're like, yeah, I'm so glad we did that and it worked well.
Yeah. Well, you want to become a systemized office. I'm going to answer the question, but you have to get the momentum, right? So the first thing that was key was having regular whole office team meetings. So with the startup, I'm just going to keep focusing on the startup aspect.
Yeah.
We would do once a week. I have like 3 or 4 team members. Okay, guys, great. By next week, since we're going to have downtime, because we have enough patients, but there's still downtime, just everybody bring the job description. I'll give you an example job description, edit it to what we want for the culture of the practice, and bring it back next week. It'll be, linked in the Google Docs or whatever. Cool. Job description's done. And then, okay, for next week, accountability agreement, check. For next week, start of day checklist and through the day checklist and end of day checklist. So now we have the department checklist. So the key systems were new patient experience. How does the flow of the new patient work? So from the first phone call to check-in to how do we greet them and bring them back? I mean, we all know this stuff, but it has to be kind of spelled out and trained on. And then how do we then present treatment? And then how do we present the financial aspect of it? And then the system that dovetails in the financial aspect of it is the insurance verification. So most of us are participate with insurance, and that starts way upstream at the verification. So you need a very detailed verification with a very specific way that you put it into Open Dental or whatever you do, so that Open Dental will spit out the most accurate treatment patient portion that you can based on what the insurance gave you. Now, are we going to be right 100%? No, we're never 100% right. But even with all the games insurance plays, I believe by having the insurance verification dialed in and the entry of it properly, and you could set up different things within Open Dental for like downgrades and all that stuff. I won't get into that. And then you could set up the same thing like in Dental Exchange to kick back claims that you maybe could have added an attachment or whatever that is. Or if like Cigna makes you bill out the build up and crown different days, it'll kick it back.
Yeah, if you need like a narrative or something like that.
Yeah. But you could have Dental Exchange kick specifically Cigna claims back where you have a build up crown together so that somebody doesn't accidentally get.
Nice.
Yeah, so you don't accidentally get denied the build up because it was billed out the same day. So
Yeah.
and then the goal of what I'm talking about is getting the most accurate patient portion that we can. Now, you're still going to be wrong sometimes, but I feel like a lot of offices' biggest pain point is telling the patient the wrong portion. But you could decrease the percentage of times you're giving them the wrong patient portion.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, to look at the details, we did put out a manual, the Dental Financial Coordinator manual, with all the processes we have, and that was meant to just make it like step by step, this is how you do that.
Yeah. No,
Wow,
I mean,
there's
like,
a lot there. Yeah.
so like, did you then too? Because I know you guys were pretty busy from day one, right? But like,
Yeah.
if there was downtime, I know what Alex did a lot, which I'll just
What'd I do?
explain on your no, is like whenever there was an opening, right? Because like when you're doing a startup, yeah, you don't have all those recalls built in. So like if a new patient cancels, right, like you've got an hour's time, right, or hour and a half time. Did you take all your like a lot of your downtime, and that was like instead of everyone just like twiddling their thumbs in the beginning, it was like, all right, we're gonna focus on systems, we're gonna train. Like, did you do a lot of that in the beginning? If you like our podcast, check out Alex's newsletter, Just 2 Minutes. It's full of great advice, which makes sense considering it's her thoughts and not me sidetracking her every 2 seconds. You can subscribe at coupleofdentists.com. The link is in the show notes. Now, back to the pod.
Yeah, I was fortunate to have a pretty seasoned assistant. But what I would have her do would be to, hey, take a picture of the endo setup and start and like label it. So that could go into our operations manual, or, make a video on how you want the rooms flipped. So like when we add the second assistant, like how can we get them up to speed? So like the goal is like then with scaling part of the system is how do we get new people up to at least serviceable in 30 days? So they come out of these dental assisting schools, they don't know anything. And my goal is I just want you to be functional in 30 days. You could do a new patient workup. You can take a Panorex and a CBCT. You can efficiently flip a room, and you could do sterilization and keep up with it. And maybe check out a patient. Boom. Like that's all I want you focusing on for the next month. If we throw the whole thing at it, then they're going to get lost and they're going to get overwhelmed. So I don't know.
Well, like Alex, like when you did, okay, so with yours, you trained a lot on there, and when we talked about it after, you said the benefit that it had for you is as you got busier, you already had a lot of those things in place. So like you almost were prepping for the future.
Oh, absolutely. Like my assistant was right out of school. Like she had interned at an office previously, and that was kind of it. And they just let her, be in a little corner. So she had zero experience, which to me was awesome because I could mold her into what I wanted. And the girl up at the front, she had a few years experience, so she was familiar with some stuff. But yeah, during downtime, I'm like, all right, what do we need to do? What is that new patient experience? Write it out. Okay, let me look at it. Okay, what are we missing? Let's go through it again. Let's act it out. And every time there was, any type of downtime, it was like, okay, what are you doing? And I want you to create the systems and get me like 80% there. And then I'll tweak it. I'll make sure everything else is in there. But obviously I'm not going to send them home or let them be on their phone or something like that.
A lot of stuff, Chris, that was like patient facing. So if it was like new patient experience and stuff like that, did you guys do a lot of role playing? Because I feel like that helped us a lot when people could actually practice it versus just reading a document.
Yeah, I mean, similar to Alex, but I will say I didn't push the role playing that much because I know the team hates it and things were working. So I guess we did do some. We certainly did, but we haven't done it in a while. But we did, maybe a couple times a year.
Oh, I mean, we didn't really do it. I mean, I don't really do it now at all. I think you would do it more, or I did it with my startup right when we were starting. And it was like, we're slow. Let's just get our main team on. And then once you have it built out, then the ideal is that person that started with you, before they leave, you've hopefully hired someone else and they've trained that person. So then it just kind of trickles down. So like you shouldn't have to do it forever.
No.
No.
We would hire people that didn't have, experience, or they came from an office that they did something very different than our new patient experience. So I was like, I don't want you just to bring them back and leave them in the chair and just take x-rays and don't talk to them. It's like, no, you're an assistant. There's a lot of things that I need you to do before I come in. Yeah. And maybe I'm just picky that way, but I expected a lot from them.
That's critical. And I used to overcomplicate it a lot. And I was like, this has to fit on one sheet of paper with enough space. So it's like bullet points. So to your point about like, okay, an emergency patient comes in. These are all the things we need done. There's a laminated checklist at the 12 o'clock and it's very simple. They end up memorizing it. But it's like, get blood pressure. I need I don't want to walk into
chief
the room
complaint.
and say, yeah, I don't want to walk into the room then and say, oh, now I need a pano. Like, no, these are the reasons I would need a pano, or these are the reasons I would need a bite wing alongside a PA, or, like, and so, yeah, we had, that's a kind of a key system, is that those 12 o'clock sheets, and we have the same for hygiene for co-diagnosing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Nice.
So did you, because I know this is one thing we differed, Alex, and maybe it's because maybe I'm lazier and I don't want to do all the work on it, but like Alex had in the beginning, she built out this awesome one sheet, right? And it had everything for like when a patient comes in, it was like a routing sheet.
Yeah.
But like the feedback we got from everyone all the time was like, you'd look at, say if it was new patient versus existing, there'd be like 20 things you had to check off, and then no one would do it long term. They do it for like a week, and then like maybe they would check off some stuff and then they wouldn't. And the feedback they gave you was kind of...
No, they never gave me feedback.
Oh, no,
they would be too scared of me to give me feedback. They were too scared of her.
But they would give me feedback, and they would say like,
this is why you can't have two like owners.
That's a whole separate thing.
Yeah.
But they said,
no, at your office where you were running your stuff, you would get feedback.
It was more like, it's so many things. This is so hard to digest. Like, I just want a few things on there. And so like, maybe that is how we started with it, where it's like, you start with this, like Chris was saying, like you get really complicated, and then like...
It's not complicated. There's...
What's a better word for it?
No, because I think it goes back to accountability.
It's detailed.
So it's detailed and it is specific, and that's fine. But I think it came down to the accountability piece. If you're not checking that they're doing those things, they're going to think it's not important. Like, I would check those things to make sure, because I don't want every time that a new patient comes in and they don't do a certain thing, and I'm going to have to tell them each time, hey, did you do this? Did you do this? Did you do this?
Yeah, but real quick, Alex, they didn't like between us, they didn't like doing it. So then, like, does the system work if your team doesn't like it, or do you as the owner have to tweak it a little bit or
get rid of that person who's not bought into the system?
Well, I think it's a little. I'm going to come in here and play mediator between you two. Yeah. I think it's somewhere in between. So I think the point Eric's trying to make is, you have to get the 80-20 out of them, because we all know, like, if you put the phone scripts, this is the 10 types of calls in a dental office. Have you ever had a team member that memorized all those phone scripts?
Yeah.
Probably 1 out of 1,000. And Alex's point is, well, we have standards here, and we're in the healthcare business, and we have to maintain the standards. So where is the middle where I'm going to get the standards met, but the team's actually going to execute on it?
Yeah. And
I think that I would come in and it would be like, well, this is too many steps. So how do we refine it? I get all the necessary information needed, and it's the 80-20, but also they could follow it. Like, one of my biggest pet peeves was coming into the room and the cords are tangled and the rheostats, out the window. And, it's like that room's not ready.
Oh yeah. Mine was always
like,
if I like, because of new patient exams for us, like in the beginning, I would do the cleanings on them, right? A lot of times as a startup. And like, we had the little Cavitron units with like the little, water reserves in it, right? So it didn't run through like the lines. But if I came in and I was like, I got to do a cleaning, and then it was empty, I was like, just like fill up the water.
So I was like, what's like the 7-point checklist that you're going to check to make sure right before I come in the room, it's all ready? And it's like, boom, boom, boom. And eventually they memorize it, and the assistants don't even have to check that. But for the newbies, you give them 20 things to check off, there's no way it's happening. They're just going to get overwhelmed and then not do any of them.
Yeah, you should see Alex's initial one. I think it had to go down to like size 7 font because it had so much
like
shit
size 4 probably. Yeah, I was like, use a magnifying glass to read this.
Step 1, get magnifying glass.
Yeah, Step 2, polish the rheostat.
Yeah, exactly.
Get the polish out.
Damn it.
Yeah. But
no, it's not. It wasn't that bad. But I will say that a lot of this stuff, for me, is always based on results. So if you are providing a good patient experience, if I am not upset when I get into a room I'm not upset when I get into a room.
No.
But if you're still doing those things and like physically not checking those boxes, that's okay. I'm not so strict on that stuff, but I still feel like the results are much more important, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it's like that fine line between how do you get the result you're looking for without
And it's
starting
like,
a system that doesn't like end up working because it's way too overwhelming.
and I think that goes back to your point, Chris, is like, what's the why behind it?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, so we don't need checklists for checklists, right? We just need like the most important areas. So let's go through it. What would be really good? A route slip, which basically walks them through the new patient experience, but the more detailed training comes in the role playing. So on the route slip, it's just the bullet points, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. We collected. We, whatever it might be. We have route slips that, I'm sure you guys have documents you'll share, but I could share a route slip. Okay.
Yeah.
So then they get in the room, and then I talk about like the 12 o'clock sheet, the workup for an emergency patient, or in hygiene, the co-diagnosing sheet. Okay. But then the route slip follows them all the way through checkout, right? And the proper handoff and the treatment. And then you'll have the daily checklist for each position in the office. And for assistants, we have like 5 or 6 assistants at this point. It's a group checklist. We're all responsible to seeing to it that it's done. And we all have areas of expertise, so to speak, that fall under us, so that it's not just one person doing all the things on the checklist. I think if you have those things, those couple areas to start, you're a lot of the way there as far as checklists go with the flow of the practice.
Yeah, I think that's right. So what did you guys, okay, here's one too, because we all started, maybe we can break down like new patient experience stuff. What are some things that you did in the beginning with your new patient experience, and what have you gotten rid of in like the 6-7 years since? Because so one of ours, and I think it's kind of, and we go back and forth on it, and you see it in like the Facebook groups all the time. It's like, do you have to give people like goodie bags all the time, right? And so like when we started, it was always like, you're using like Cialdini's principles, and it's, hey, give someone their goodie bag, so you're giving them something, so then when you ask them for something later, then they're more likely to say yes to your treatment. And so we would do a lot of stuff like that in the beginning, so the patient would come in, get greeted, get their goodie bag of stuff. You'd sit down, take all your photos, actually, all that kind of stuff. Doctor comes in, blah, blah, blah. Like, that's it, right? But in the beginning part, I was just trying to say is the patient goodie bag thing. Do you still do that piece, or what are your thoughts on that?
I don't know what they do now. So I think we still have goodie bags. I don't know if everybody still gets them, but I'm with you. That's kind of, I know some offices just do it if they ask, but to answer your question,
I don't know if it made a difference in our case acceptance.
Because
like,
no, it's
during
expected.
COVID.
Yeah.
During COVID, we got rid of them.
Yeah.
So, and then like no one was really asking for them. And so we're like, is this really that valuable? And our case acceptance didn't change, and patient experience didn't change. We weren't getting like bad reviews. Like no one gave me a free toothbrush.
Yeah.
So it was like, maybe this really doesn't.
So we still have it like
needle
on the walls, and it's kind of more like if patients want it, or they're like, you see them looking at it, I'll tell my assistants, or my assistants will kind of look at me like, oh, do you want something, right? And so I don't know. That's kind of how we switched it.
I think our patient experience, is about the people that are performing it, right? So, well, first of all, you walk in, and at least it's going to be a nice, clean, welcoming waiting room, like we most of us have with, the Keurigs, the whatever, and then a nice greeting, right? From there, it's about the flow, so it doesn't feel clunky. People really don't want to be waiting long. They can tell when they're like, does this person know what they're doing? Like doing my new patient workup. So it's an efficient, like x-rays and things like that. And then just being like good people, like being kind and friendly. But I didn't have too many things that would like, oh my gosh, this is a tactical thing you could do that's going to blow people away. It was a lot of the things that I think most sophisticated offices that would listen to this podcast would be doing already. We did have the new patient slideshow we did for a long time and have gotten away with it. And that was like, this is the office. These are some of the people. These are some of the things we're looking for. Here's the services we offer. And then we have the comfort cart, for people that are anxious or getting treatment done, with earplugs and essential oils and stress balls. And then we did give goodie bags, and I think we were just kind to people, and we started getting a lot of good Google reviews. From that.
So what are your thoughts on the one thing you did, Alex, too, and you were big on, was like the whole like transfer of trust stuff. So like, if you go to like you go to a really nice restaurant, right? Or you go anywhere, you feel like everything, when you go from one stage to another, you're getting like handed off every time. And then they're talking to each other kind of like in front of you. And it almost makes you feel like, oh man, they know what the frick they're doing, right? So like,
Yeah.
I know you always made it a point, Alex, that
Yeah.
like when it was like doing handoffs, especially if you were doing treatment plans in the room, like let's say even if you were just doing them in the room or if someone wanted to do same day, right? But let's say you're bringing your treatment coordinator into the room, the assistant or the doctor wouldn't just let the treatment coordinator walk in. They would transfer the patient to the treatment coordinator. So it was like, hey, I've got Chris in. Chris is saying he's got pain on his bottom left molar, right? It sure looks like he needs a root canal on this from what we see here and here. I told him that you would go over all his insurance stuff, help him get all that stuff figured out. And then, yeah, we'd love to see him and get it done today. So if we can make that work, that would be great, right? If I hear that as a patient, I'm like, holy shit, this person remembered me. They remembered what was going on. And I watched them visually explain it to someone else. And I feel like, I don't know, I like the smoothness of it.
Yeah, we were
nice.
big on the voiceover technique, the transfer of trust, if you will. I think that's key. I think that we have to reiterate it to our teams too, because they get lazy on it.
We all know Eric wants more friends. If you're enjoying this episode, share the podcast and then tell them to DM Eric so he can hit his quota of 1 new friend per day. Now back to the episode. Yeah, exactly. And that's where that role playing came in. It was like, yeah, it can sound really awful the first time you do it. And you're like, and so that's what, like, let's get rid of that. We'll try it 50 times. Come on, let's like get it going.
Totally.
So that with like transfer, but also I thought a key one was when my assistant was in doing like all the photos and x-rays and stuff like that, I walked them through, they walked the patient through everything. Like they would go through it, the pictures and stuff. Before I even went in there, I wanted them to prep that patient so that when I came in, the assistant would be prepping me on what's going on. So a lot of that initial work already kind of happened and there was already a little bit of buy-in with the patient. So the assistant's like, all right, Dr. Cantor, we looked through this tooth. We already saw that there is a crack on this amalgam. We think that maybe there might be a crown. I'd love for you to take a look at this, not diagnosing or whatever you want to call it, but just walking through the whole thing. So the patients, one, hearing it for the second time, and two, we're all on the same page. And now I don't have to be that person that like brings up bad news. It's, hey, yep, you're right. We do have a crack on this tooth.
I think that's a great habit. Yeah, that's a great way to plant the seeds and get the buy-in early on.
Oh yeah, I remember us doing that. Oh God, we do not do that anymore. But we should. It's one of those where we actually should do that, because that was nice. It brought back some like nice memories in my head of like when we would do that, especially at your office more, where they would help do that. It gave more buy-in to the assistants. I feel like they felt a bigger part of the team, like they were helping the patient, right? And I think that was nice too. And like you said, it's just another voice and another touch point of like reiterating what's going on.
And presentation for treatment was larger. I wasn't just focusing on like one thing. I'd be like, we know what's going on. We've already discussed like the 4 teeth that need, work.
Well, I think
like,
too,
it just
like
opens it up a little bit.
And you have to do it efficiently though, right? Because like the things we're talking about, like you could definitely not do it well, and it could take the assistant 15 minutes to do it, right? Like that's not the way you do it. You still have to, I think, with all your systems, because you have a certain amount of time with patients, and patients, come on, like they don't want to be in the chair for more than 90 minutes on a new patient exam, right? And they probably don't even want to be in for 90 minutes. So I think like all these are good, but I think the other piece of it too is knowing how to do it like confidently and efficiently. So like, I know when our assistants would do that, it would take them like 2 minutes to go through it. This wasn't like reading a novel to the patient. Mm-hmm. And so I think that's the other piece too, is knowing how to do it and making it just
and again, that comes from practice. I remember going through pictures with assistants going, okay, what do you see? Tell me what you see and what do you think I would do? Yeah. And they got pretty good at like, oh yeah, there's a crack right here. Or like, there's a little stain. I'm like, don't say that. Like, here's the important things to say. We're not boring the patient to death. Let's just go over the main points. And then they figured it out. They're like, oh yeah, this is what I need to say every single time. And then that became the habit and the system of this is how we do it. And yeah, it's just way easier to scale that.
That's great. And that's what you said earlier. What should we be working on in between patients early on? It's stuff like that. That's going to move.
Yeah,
that's going to move the needle better than anything.
Yeah,
especially
that did, because I noticed sometimes when we would get away from it, or if we don't do it as much now, like that, I've seen a little enough of a difference in like case acceptance, right? And I think that's one that helps. So what was one system that you did, if you can remember any, where you're like, oh, this is going to be like epic, and then you're like, yeah, that didn't work at all, and that just completely bombed?
Oh my gosh, there were a few for sure. And the team, like, I can't think of a specific, but I always remember the team's response. And I was like, oh, I'm like in a meeting and I'm trying to explain it. And I'm like, this is going south. Like, this is not being, there's no buy-in here. I'm like, and then it would always end like, okay, well, maybe, like, don't worry about that right now. Like, I'll,
yeah. Retract.
Quick pivot.
Retract on that. Yeah. Never mind. We won't do that. No, I got one.
Well, yeah. What was yours?
Patient referrals. Like, we spent a lot of time trying to figure out like how, like, we made little cards, like give this to your 10 friends and you get stuff, like credit off your stuff. It, like, none of that worked. It was always really hard. And maybe I wasn't doing it in a good enough way or whatever it was, but it was always really tough to get, like, no one ever came back with one of those little cards and was like, hey, I got this from my friend.
Right? Like,
I know,
you got to look
rare.
back at, and like, did you, I mean, I don't know. For me personally, if someone gave that to me, I would not take time and energy to go do that. Yeah. Like, I just wouldn't. Like, I'm not, and it's like, what's the offer and what's the ask, right? Like, if it's like, hey, now I have to go and either find this person, sign some, like, there's a lot of steps to get that person to give it. And if it's like worth like $50 off treatment, like, is it really
no
worth
one's like,
it?
thanks.
Yeah. So that is one that I don't think ever worked.
Yeah. If someone cracked at that one, like, let me know, but that's tough.
Well, I think to kind of put a bow on this whole thing, like, it's like you asked me before the call, you're like, let's give them some tactical stuff. I think we've given a lot of tactical ideas and, most importantly, ways to get implemented and get it momentum, right? I always was of the mindset of hitting singles and doubles and not trying to hit all on X's every day. Like, we do implants in full bony thirds and endos. We do a lot of the super GP stuff. We don't do the all on X stuff. I've always been like, can we hit singles and doubles every day with our systems, with our patient experience, with our treatment acceptance? And over time, that just compounds, right? And the most important thing to make progress, if you're trying to implement systems and move the needle and have more predictability in your day-to-day with your team, is I think regular meetings and the cadence of meetings. So a good efficient morning huddle, a once a month meeting with the whole office. If you have a leadership team or a couple of managers or key team members that you're grooming towards that, a meeting once a week with them. And then department meetings every other week and one-on-ones with everybody. These things move the culture. Everybody knows what's going on when you're having them regularly, and you might be saying, Chris, that's a ton of meetings. How do you even fit that in? Believe me, we have a busy schedule full of patients, but we prioritize these things and we're efficient about those meetings. They're not taking 3 hours or something. It's like, this meeting should only take 20 minutes or a one-on-one should be like 15 minutes, because all those little things are touch points with the team, and we figure out where we need to course correct. Oh, shoot, we've gotten sloppy. We've gotten away from what Alex just said of the assistants have slowed down in preheating the patient. Let's get back to that system that worked. So we catch those things and we get back on track, or we develop, hey, this area is a real pain point and frustration. Cool. Let's develop a process for that.
We should do because this would be like a whole nother episode, but I think would be super helpful on like meetings, and we should deep dive into the ones you do, because I feel like people
do miss the mark.
Yeah,
on
people
meetings,
feel like they have to hold a meeting, but they don't know how to hold a meeting and make it effective. And I was never that great at that. And it was always like everyone's always excited, right? It's like, oh, we're gonna do the meeting, and then the doctor or the leader of it's like, cool, this is the time where I get to tell everyone we get to do this, and then it just erodes. Like everything that you plan on doing, like 5% of it happens. So I would love if you feel like
let's come back and really deep dive into like how to hold a meeting, because it's unfortunate that like you have one like once a week or every 2 weeks, and then it becomes like just a bitch fest, and you're like, this is not productive.
Yeah.
And I'm sure a lot of people get into that thing where they're like, I don't want to do this. Now I'm paying my staff to be in this meeting. Half of them aren't even listening, and it's just like, it's such a mess. And then people hate meetings and they stop doing them. Yeah. And there is definite value to them. I think let's just figure out the best ways to do it.
Chris, you've been volunteered. Volunteered to come back on to another episode so we can actually go through all these meetings, because I think that would be super helpful.
Yeah, we could dive in for sure, but I think progress is made. And people think that, I'm losing money during this meeting. No, you're losing money not doing it. I mean, all that matters is results at the end of the day. And our practice has had those meetings for years, and I think the results speak for themselves, because we're doing more during the productive time then, because we are more organized and are on point.
Yeah, nice. Sure. Okay, well, meetings next time. Cool. Well,
thank you.
Thanks for coming on, and we'll talk to you next time all about meetings.
Thanks, guys. That was fun.
Cool. See ya.